Picking up that cell phone on your way home from work could soon be against the law nationwide. The National Transportation Safety Board recommended all states ban cell phones and other electronic devices by all drivers. The only exception would be in cases of emergencies. Drivers could still use GPS or devices that aid driving, and passengers wouldn't be affected. But talking on your Bluetooth would also be banned, even if it's connected to your car.
It may seem like it's a very quick call, a very quick text, a tweet, or an update. But accidents happen in the blink of an eye.
NBC5's Amanda Guerra went to a driving school today and has more.
Well, the biggest argument a lot of people make is they don't have to actually look at their phone while they're driving and texting or talking on it for that matter. But officials say no matter how good people think they are, there's no way to stay safe with your cell phone turned on inside the car.
I always say to my students, driving is like a battlefield. You remember your point? Yeah. Okay. You're trying to get from point A to point B alive. You can't do that if you're being distracted.
Troy Self knows all too well the dangers of driving. As the owner of Smart Choice Driving School, his first lesson to every student: no cell phones behind the wheel.
It distracts from the road completely. I mean, you lose reaction time and you lose awareness when you're doing that.
It's a warning we've heard for years, but today the National Transportation Safety Board said no longer is a warning enough. Today the board called for a national ban against all cell phone use in cars, including hands-free devices.
It's time to put a stop to distraction. No call, no text, no update is worth a human life.
The NTSB focused their recommendation around this accident, a deadly highway pileup in Missouri last year. The driver at fault, a 19-year-old man.
In the 11 minutes before the accident, 11 texts were sent or received. And the last text was right before the impact.
According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, last year, almost 3,100 people died due to distracted driving.
Brake pressure all the way. Brake pressure.
So whether it's texting or talking, Troy agrees there's only one way to reduce that number.
And there's no way around reducing that unless you did get rid of both altogether and not allow cell phones in cars.
And we want to make clear that the NTSB, this is only a recommendation for them. They don't have the authority to make this a law, but board members will ask state legislatures to do so. Reporting in Plano, Amanda Guerra, Nonstop Nightly.
The city of Arlington banned texting and driving back in September. Officers began enforcing that last month. While they won't discuss just how many citations have been issued, the department reports seeing fewer drivers texting now behind the wheel. The NTSB says more than 3,000 people lost their lives last year in distraction-related crashes. The board also says globally there are more than 5.3 billion mobile phone subscribers. That's 77% of the world population. In the U.S., that number actually exceeds 100% because many people have more than one cell phone. In March of last year, AT&T launched a campaign simply titled "It Can Wait." Part of that campaign included a 10-minute documentary featuring families affected by texting while driving. Here is one story.
This is my sister. She was looking at my message that I had just sent her. When she looked up, she had clipped the median on the left-hand side of the road. Her truck flipped, and as it was flipping, she was actually ejected through the driver's side door, and she landed in the ditch about 300 feet from her truck. People will tell you over and over again, it's not your fault. But knowing that you were the person that she was talking to when she was killed, just having a highway patrol officer write in a report that a text message sent at 12:05 is the reason that she is dead is not something that will ever go away. If I could talk to her one last time, I would just say I'm sorry. This is her cell phone that she used in the accident. 4 little letters. That's what killed her.
Joining me live in the studio now is Stephen Laird with the law offices of Stephen C. Laird. That documentary is an awful one to watch. Do you see a lot of stories like that?
Unfortunately, I do as a lawyer. Seeing crashes and fatality collisions, it's all too often where texting devices, handheld devices are being used and distracting the driver.
What do you think of these recommendations today by the NTSB?
Well, Jane, we finally hit the intersection of safety versus convenience. The safety has to do with what you reported earlier, with well over 3,000 fatalities involving distracted drivers.
Right.
And at the same time, we all know how convenient it is to have a cell phone or some other type of portable electronic device in the car to use while we're traveling. And therein lies the dilemma. So many drivers feel that they can go ahead and use a phone and still safely drive, when in fact the studies have shown that unfortunately most of the time that does involve a severe, significant distraction.
Well, so do you think at this point we could see a nationwide ban?
That's probably unlikely, although that certainly looks like where we're possibly heading. Keep in mind, this is a states' rights issue.
So what about in Texas? Last year, Texas legislators passed a similar law. Perry didn't sign it. What difference do these recommendations make now?
They may create a little bit more pressure, but Governor Perry indicated during the last legislative session when he vetoed this legislation that he felt that this was an intrusion on individual rights. So it's as much of a political issue as it is a safety issue in some areas, in some circles.
It seems like to me that it's a really hard law to enforce. I mean, what are you going to do? Pull over every car? I mean, I guess you could pull over people like you do when you see them weaving when they're drinking.
That's right.
Would that be the way to enforce it?
Well, that's one of the ways, and as a matter of fact, just recently, Arlington instituted a city ordinance that bans texting or using cell phones unless it's a handheld device. And one of the big arguments that was voiced publicly was how hard it's going to be to enforce that. So it remains to be seen if it can really be validly enforced.
I want to ask you real quickly, put your lawyer suit aside. As a person, as a driver, what do you think we should do?
Well, I do think it's a very significant issue. It's a safety issue first and foremost. Convenience sometimes does need to take a back seat, and all you have to do is ask yourself, is it worth saving a life? And I think everybody would say yes.
Yeah, just a habit that we're going to have to get into.
That's right.
Thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it. And we will be right back.